All right. So hi there and welcome to the monthly Hypnotherapy Uncensored Spotlight, this time guest hosted by Jenny Bitner. I'm your host, Krista Marie Bowman, creator of this Facebook group, Hypnotherapy Uncensored, Building a Better Practice, and also founder of Quantum Journeys Hypnosis Academy. We're streaming live now into the Hypnotherapy Uncensored Facebook group. And to answer the one question that I get asked the most often, yes, this will be recorded and there will be a replay. In fact, the replay is always available in the group feed. So if at any point you want to just go watch it that way, all you got to do is type Jenny Bitner, or you could just type live event or spotlight guest host, any of those in the search key, search bar thing, and that'll bring this up. But it also goes up onto our YouTube channel after I go through and just trim it up and stuff, which is where you can find almost all of the Spotlight guest host events that I've done since 2021. So there's quite a few. And I'm going to pop that link into the chat bar in just a bit for all the people that are here in Zoom right now. So you can go check that out. And of course, like and subscribe, but you can also find it just by looking up Hypnotherapy Uncensored or Krista Marie Bowman. If you're joining us and you're not already a member of Hypnotherapy Uncensored, if you're seeing this elsewhere, perhaps in YouTube or elsewhere on Facebook, then go ahead and find us by looking up Hypnotherapy Uncensored, or just reach out to me and I'll get you that link. And that way you can watch these live and come join us every single one. And so how many do we have? We usually have one, but sometimes two in a month. It sort of depends on the month. So this month we have two, and Jenny is our second Spotlight guest host. And then February, there's only going to be one. So a lot of times it has to do with the length of the month and also just special stuff that's going on. I encourage you to pop any questions that you may have for Jenny in the chat box if you're watching this in Zoom. I will try and keep an eye on the Facebook group itself. So anybody who's watching from there, if you don't feel like joining us in Zoom, I will hopefully see your questions. But honestly, it would be better if you would just come join us here. And that would be more fun for Jenny too, so she could interact more directly with you guys. And so a little bit about Jenny. She's considered the writer's hypnotherapist. She's a writing teacher, a hypno coach, and author of the novel, Here is a Game We Could Play. She specializes in helping writers and others achieve focus, lessen anxiety, and live their lives with ease, flow, and passion. Explore her transformative trance writing recordings at jennybitner.com. That's JENNYBITNER.com. And I'm still letting people in. So today she's going to help us demystify the impact of technology and modern life and how our brains focus in relation to all of that. She's going to offer us some practical solutions and strategies to boost our clients' concentration and our own as well, as I understand it. We're going to be doing a little trancy work here today too, which is always fun. And also to empower your clients to discover effective hypnotic techniques that you can use to help them to achieve their important goals despite the distraction of technology. Okay, so Ms. Jenny Bitner, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Krista, and thank you for doing so much for the hypnosis community through these and your other offerings. I'm really excited to be here today and to talk to other hypnotists, some of my favorite people. So I'll just tell you a little about myself, who I am, how I got started in all this. I am a writer, and I've been a writer since I was a child, mostly fiction writer. I studied creative writing. And I have not always been the best person with focus. I think that people tend to teach the areas, either the areas that they're really naturally strong at, or more often the areas that they indeed struggle with themselves. So when I was younger and I was doing writing, I've always been super creative. But it's been hard for me to focus on things. I have anxiety also. And so my mind would be filled with many, many things. And I think that I would also get involved in relationships and allow the relationships to kind of control my emotions. So as we're going to look at focus today, I think that there are primarily two areas that we need to focus on, and that is the external, the world and everything out there, and then the internal, which is often our own emotional regulation, which can be hard to do. So around 10 years ago, I started getting involved in hypnosis, studied hypnosis. And one of the reasons I was studying hypnosis was um, that I have been a creative writing teacher for a long time, teach mostly fiction and some memoir. And I was always interested in the source of creativity and the unconscious mind and where inspiration comes from. So I teach a lot of classes that are very much about getting inspired, very much about going into your deep unconscious mind and just exploring imagination. And so I had studied that a lot, and I'd also kind of looked at some of the classic writers or experimental writers and exercises that they did to get more inspired. And some like the surrealists would do a lot of exercises with dreams and the unconscious mind. And some writers also do automatic writing, where they, are using their unconscious mind to just guide them. So I was interested in teaching those kind of things. And then after I studied hypnosis, I started bringing that even more into my writing classes and creating trance writing classes that are group hypnosis to help people go into scenes and stories. And so all of it has been kind of intertwined. And right now, most of my clients are writers. And so I deal often with things that they deal with, and focus is a huge problem for writers. But focus is a huge problem for all of society right now. When I told my friend who's a life coach that I was teaching this, and I sort of showed her my description, she's like, you're underplaying how bad it is. She's like, people come to me and they can't do anything because they are just like so addicted to their technology, addicted to their phones. Um, so I would say first, when we start dealing with ourselves or we start dealing with our clients, one of the first things is to say, it's not just you. It's not just your problem. You don't have a broken brain. You're not, you are not alone in this addiction to your phone. That this is a problem that we are largely dealing with as a society right now because of all of this new technology in our environment. And one study says that people check their phones 344 times a day. So that is every 4 minutes that people are looking at their phones. And, perhaps you don't check your phone quite that much, but I would say most people who have a smartphone check it more than they think they do, and certainly more than they probably want to, once they start looking at what it's actually doing to them, all of these constant mini interruptions in our life. We cannot focus on something when we're constantly being interrupted. But the reason that they're so addictive, these phones, is because they give us intermittent reinforcement. So in psychology, intermittent reinforcement is the most powerfully addictive thing. And they've even found this like with rats, like rats who are getting, a stimulant. And if they always get it, they become addicted to it. But if sometimes they push the lever and they get it, and then sometimes they don't, they even get more addictive to it. Perhaps sometime in your life, like I have, you had a bad relationship with a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a partner who was only there some of the time and then wasn't there others of the time. And you understand that that is more addicting than someone who is there all of the time, because you occasionally get the dopamine hit. You occasionally get the positive reinforcement of, oh, there's a nice text. And then, you know, um, 3 days of nothing, And so that is actually a very addictive cycle in our psychology. In the same way, our phones, half the time you might, pick up it when it does that little ding, or if you have it on silent and it just lights up or whatever. And it's sort of nothing, it is just like an ad for some place where you stupidly gave them your your phone number or something like that. And but then sometimes it might be, a picture of someone you love, a grandchild, a cute pet photo. So those are all, providing positive chemicals, positive
It's
emotion.
reminding me of like gambling machines, like poker, that sort of thing, where sometimes intermittent reinforcement thing. Yeah. What
Exactly.
highly, highly addictive, even more so than toxic partners, I think maybe.
Well, it depends. We all have our different addictions. It depends on the person. But yeah, it's definitely very addictive. And so that is what we are faced with. Our phones are those slot machines. They are those, random partners. And so when we are talking with our clients, making them aware of that is important. So, we are the rats who keep pushing the levers. And before we can make any change through hypnosis, because hypnosis, the very first quality of hypnosis is focused attention on something. So is hypnosis a good tool for improving people's focus? Absolutely. So we can help people with this. We can help ourselves with this. But first we have to realize that this is something we want to do, because we might just be going through our lives and be like, this is okay. But what are we giving up when we are constantly looking at these things? I think that we are not valuing our attention enough. We tend to put value on our money and less value on our attention. So if someone came to us 344 times a day and asked even for a quarter from us, we would say no, because we value money and we know it's hard to make. And that would actually add up to $78 if you gave a person a quarter every time that the average person is looking at their phone. So, but we're not valuing our attention in the same way that we're valuing our money. But our attention is even more important because it is our time, it is limited, it is what we can get done, it is our mental health, because many times this overwhelm, this lack of concentration, and this extreme distraction is hurting people's mental health. It's basically everything. It is what we choose to put our attention on, the things that we value most in our life. And so, are we putting our attention on the things that we value most in our lives, or are we giving it away for free to distractions on? And I'm not choosing those values for you. If what you value is, scrolling Reddit for 2 hours a day, or looking at Facebook, or being on TikTok for, an hour, that's okay. It's your value to choose. And sometimes that might be a good just downtime activity to do. But to be aware that we're doing it, and to be aware that that is our attention. And when we're doing those things, there is also a time that it takes to refocus our attention. It doesn't just take that second that we look away, because we've become distracted from what we're doing, and our minds take time to come back to what we're doing. And if that in that time that we're coming back to what we're doing, we're distracted by yet another thing, and then we get in a cycle where we feel like we really are not getting done the things that we want to do in our life. So the first question is, why do we want to focus? And I would say you can ask yourself that, you can ask your clients that, and that can be a time to get in touch with your own values. And like for me, if I have a value that writing is important to me, or being with my family is important to me, being with friends is important to me, then I should show up in ways that I'm valuing those things rather than in ways that I'm allowing my time to be taken away by these distractions. So we can ask that ourselves that question, and sometimes you can do a value inventory with your clients and find out what their top values are, and then are they living out those top values for with the way they are using technology or using distraction. So I'm going to look at a few things of how we can approach this. So I've been talking a lot about the environment, and ways to change the environment are, making ourselves aware of how we are using technology. We can put controls on our devices. There are a lot of apps like Space, Freedom, or some of the names of them. If your client, and, put the homework back on them. If your client comes to you because they can't focus and they want to change that behavior, I would say, I would ask them to do some research. I'm working with somebody right now who has this issue. He's a freelancer. He came to me and he said, he is feeling distracted all the time. He's not feeling passionate about his work, although he likes it. And I think the reason he's not feeling passionate is because he's not putting limits. Another thing that freelancers often do is they don't put limits around downtime in their life. So in the same time that focused attention time is important, you know, separating out downtime so that, he didn't even have any hours a day that he was considering himself not working. So I was like, you need to start with at least having 2 hours a day while you're not working. And now he's built up. Now he also has 1 day a week when he's not working. It's kind of insane that many freelancers, because there is no, because they do have a lot of freedom and they can take time whenever they want, but they also get into the problem of kind of like always feeling like they should be working or not setting aside, this is a time when I'm not working. So those focused attention on work or on what you value is important, as is focused downtime. So an activity that you can try is to like pick 30 minutes and just focus on the task that you want to do, and notice if at any time in that period a distraction comes up or an interruption or anything like that, and just don't allow yourself to do that interruption, to see how long can I focus on a task, and then to try to build that up. Another thing that's good is to have groups that you focus in. I have a writing group that meets Mondays and Fridays on Zoom, and it's free. I allow, anyone who wants to come, and we just focus on writing for 2 hours in that group. So having the other people there helps me to be able to keep my focus, and it certainly helps them too. Another tool like that is called Focus Mate. Focus Mate is, if you do it for a few sessions, it's free, a few sessions a week, actually. So it's actually a tool that anyone can use. And Focus Mate, it is basically like you sign up for a time and you're like, I want to focus at this time. And you find like a random stranger who also wants to focus at that time. And then you're both on your Zoom screens, and you start out by saying, I'm going to focus on, preparing my notes for this class I'm teaching for hypnotists, for example. And they say, okay, I got to focus. I got to do my taxes, And so you just work for whatever time you've set. It's usually hour increments. And then at the end, you're like, yeah, okay, I got this done. Because again, when I say it's not all our problem, like all these technology things are affecting us, it also doesn't have to be all our solution on our own. We can find community for help with this. We can find other people to help us with. And this is also in the neurodivergent community, this is a huge concept too, the concept of body doubling. And what that means is if you have a task and it's very hard to do, you find someone else just to either physically be with you, not doing the task, just sort of like, hey, this is my support person, or online, and they are your body double. And that just gives us a lot more. People do use it if they're cleaning and it's really hard for them to clean. And so if there is a task that is especially hard to do, the focus mate or body doubling can be a good strategy for getting those things done. Because I've been talking about the environment, but the other thing, the reason that we procrastinate, the reason we don't get things done is because the feelings of doing the thing, feel bad to us. So they feel worse to us than we think what is the outcome is going to be. And so there is an emotional reason why we aren't doing these things. Sometimes it's fear. We're afraid, we are at some level afraid to get the client, afraid to apply for the job, afraid to finish the book, or anxious, or just embarrassed to send someone an email because we didn't get back to them for so long. All of these feelings stop us from doing the things that we want to do. So I would say, as hypnotists, we are great with working with people's feelings. If we also tell people who are procrastinating that underneath that procrastination, yes, there is the large environmental factor. And then there also is the emotional factor, that underneath that is usually a feeling that they don't want to feel, that we don't want to feel. It's something that's hard for us for some reason. There's some emotion there. So what do you do in that situation? Sometimes journaling, you can write out all of the reasons that you feel fearful about this thing, and then just getting them out of your body and onto a piece of paper is helpful. Most people in the hypnosis community know EFT tapping, emotional freedom. You can tap on the feeling, whatever it is, whether it's fear or even anger. I mean, anger is sometimes the emotion, because say, you got a medical bill for, like, you were in an accident and you got a medical bill, even though, like, you were hit and you were in pain, and then you have to deal with all this paperwork about that medical bill. You don't want to do that. There's so much anger underneath there. In somebody else's mind, oh, it's just a simple task, filling out this paperwork. But for the person who's in that situation, there are a lot of feelings under there. So if it can be anger, so you can tap on that to free yourself from those feelings. So then in the end, it just becomes, oh, well, this is just a task that I want to do. It's not the most lovely, glorious task in the world, but it's just a task. So those are some of the tools that you can use to help your clients if they're having the emotions that are underneath it. So for example, if you're wanting to send an email and you don't, or you're having to deal with your taxes, another thing people often procrastinate on. So I am going to be teaching in February, a focus lab for the month of February that is going to be all about focusing. I'm going to have 4 meetings with hypnosis, and I'll put the link in there later if you're interested in that. But what I want to do now is to actually lead you in some hypnosis. And we're going to use a hypnosis induction that I took it from a sort of hypnosis induction that I found and then changed it some. I don't know if people know it. It's called 7 + or - 2. And it is kind of dealing with the idea that in our minds, we can hold 5 or maybe 7 or maybe 9 bits of information, but we can't really hold too much more than that. And then our short-term memory gets overwhelmed. And so then we kind of go to the point of like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. And so so the idea for it is it's kind of a confusion induction. But before we get to the hypnosis, and I will say that if you're driving or doing something that takes your full focus, you want to give your full focus to that and to not listen to the hypnosis. But Krista, before I do that, were there any questions that were in the chat or not?
I didn't see any questions in the chat. Do we have any questions before she leads us on this little hypnosis journey? Looks like we're good to go.
Okay, great. Okay, so we've all know, or perhaps we've read somewhere, that we can hold in our minds roughly 7 plus or minus 2 things in our short-term memory at any one time. And then say after 6 or 7 or 8 things, our minds start to get confused. At that point, we just give up and let go. Once I worked in Alaska at a fish plant on a factory line, and I was picking the fish eggs, the roe, off the conveyor belt. But when they came towards me, they were mixed with the fish heads. And usually they would come maybe 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, and I would pluck them and put them in the baskets. But sometimes the line would get clogged, and then say maybe 8 or 9 or even 11 sets of fish eggs would come at me all at once, mixed with the heads, of course. And I would start grabbing 1 and 2 and 3, but more were coming. And I was picking 3, 6, 7, and then there were just too many to pick at once. And I couldn't possibly get them all. And I would just get overwhelmed. If I missed the eggs, they went into the grinder and then into the river. And so I would try hard. It was my job, but sometimes there were just too many, and I'd give up and have to let them go. And they just go by me into the grinder. But instead of getting upset, there was something funny about just watching those eggs, those precious eggs, go into the grinder. It's kind of like that Lucille Ball scene where she is working at a chocolate factory on the conveyor line, and the chocolates, she's having to wrap them each individually. And at first she's able to keep up, and then they get more and more. And so she sort of starts eating them and popping them into her mouth and putting them into her clothes. There can be a feeling of humor when we get overwhelmed and we just let go. There can be a feeling of relaxation. And I want you to focus on your breath and making your out breath 2 seconds longer than your in breath. And while you're focusing on that, focus on the feeling of your body where it touches the chair or the bed if you're lying down. And focus on the temperature in the room. So you're focusing on your breath 2 seconds longer, the feeling of your body in the chair, the temperature in the room, and on the last thing you had to eat. And while you're focusing on your breathing, the feeling of your body in the chair, the temperature in the room, the last thing you had to eat, and maybe you can still taste it in your mouth. And while you're focusing on this, I want you to focus on every time I say the word now. And while you're still focusing on your breath, now the temperature in the room, now the last thing you ate, you focus on now. And there's a little feeling of relaxation when I say now. You're focusing on your breathing a little longer, on the out breath, your body on the chair, the temperature in the room, the last thing you ate, the taste in your mouth now. And now focus on the feeling in your right elbow. So now you're still holding the focus on breathing out 2 seconds longer than in your chair, the temperature in the room, the feeling in your body, the last thing you ate. And now focus on your tongue, where it is in your mouth. And now, as you're focusing on the feeling of yourself in the chair, the temperature in the room, your out breath, 2 seconds longer than your in breath, the feeling in your elbow, your tongue in your mouth. I want you to just focus on one thing now. And that thing is how good it feels to focus on only one thing. And now just relax and allow yourself to feel how good it feels to focus on that feeling of relaxation. That's all you need to do. Just relax. This is focus. What is focus? Simply putting your attention on one thing, like how good it feels to focus on one thing. We focus to make peace with our minds, to allow our minds to go deeply into what we value. If we love something, we can let go of the distractions in our mind, turn off our to-do list, and just listen with attention to the person we love. We focus to achieve the goals we want. All we need to do is focus on one task and finish it, and then focus on the next. And you all know how to do that so well. It's so much more relaxing to let go of everything else in our minds and let the one thing become our conscious focus. Maybe it's working, writing, reading, studying. If distractions come up, we notice them and let them go. It feels good to the mind to focus deeply on one thing. Everything else can just fade away. As you're feeling how good it feels to just focus on one thing. And whenever you need to focus on one thing, you can say to yourself, one, And the word one will help you remember this feeling, one, of focused attention, one, when you let go of everything that is not that one thing. So you can hold deeply, hold in your body the one thing. And it feels good to be working on one thing at a time. And it feels good to move forward in small steps, doing whatever the next best thing is. One thing. And if there's a project that you're working on, something in your mind that you want to get done, I want you to imagine that thing now. And we're going to go into a little journey as if we're in a concert hall, seeing, feeling, imagining, or just pretending that you're there. You're going there to see a show in a big, crowded auditorium. With excitement before the show, you notice the people, the noises, and maybe your mind distracted. But then in a moment, the one thing is going to come onto the stage, and you'll focus your attention just on that one thing. It's the thing you've been working on, a thing you want to get done. The lights go down in the auditorium. A spotlight is on the stage, and you see or feel or imagine that one thing on the stage. Your focused attention, you can see it from different angles. You can notice that it's not a difficult thing. It's just another thing in the world, a thing that you will achieve when you work with others, by yourself, allowing the best and highest outcome of your own creativity. Allow the spotlight on that one thing to go out. And now you're sitting in the dark with your own mind, and you realize the more you feel compassion towards your own mind, the more you feel friendly towards your own mind, the easier it is to focus, the easier it is to do all of the things that you value most, as you are in control of your own mind, and you are the master of your focus. And it feels powerful because you are in control. And it feels peaceful because there is only one thing at a time. And it feels good because you're working on the one thing. So set the intention to be a powerful, focused being that you already are. And if something comes up, take a moment and think, is this worthy of my powerful, beautiful attention? As more and more in the days and weeks and months ahead, You value your own attention as the beautiful, powerful, amazing thing it is, the thing that creates everything in your life, the thing that you turn to with love and wonder. And we're going to start to come back knowing whenever you think the word one, you can return to this feeling of being in control, being master of your own attention. One, starting to come back, two, aware of where you are in your room. Three, moving around a bit. Four, opening your eyes. Five, all the way back, awake and alert.
Thank you. What a treat. We haven't had one of those in a couple of months.
So I would love to, hear any comments or questions or stories of your own journey with focus.
I did want to share that Alan said that he's sorry he had to cut out. He had to go to a meeting, but he's going to watch the replay. And thank you. It was very interesting. So,
Nice. Thank you, Alan.
Ruthie, did you go pretty deep?
I was in and out. I just sometimes I could hear, sometimes I couldn't. You took me really deep. That was really, really good. It was really good. And I made a really good intention because yeah, this thing right here distracts me so much.
Yeah, I know. We love them, but they
The love-hate thing.
love hate. Yeah,
Yes.
they're in more control than we are most of the time. And yeah, so that's great.
That was
Well,
a
you have
great
a great
hypnosis.
Yeah, it was. I actually, because I had to keep an eye on anybody who wanted to come into the room, I was struggling not to go very deep. I was like, stay just at the surface, Krista. Enjoy the relaxation, but don't go too deep. And then every once in a while I'd be like, okay, wait, I'm too deep. I had to pull myself back out.
Yeah, and I picked that induction because it very much parallels what is going on with focus we become overwhelmed, we're focusing on too many things, and then we just let go. And so when we can just focus on one thing at a time, then they've also said that this multitasking is a myth, that we're in fact just switching quickly from one task to the other. So
Yeah.
it is not like we can focus on all those things.
And as I've gotten older, I found my ability to switch quickly is not as good as it used to be. I used to think that I was actually really great at multitasking. What I realize now is that I was forced to have to be proficient at it because there was no other option, but that I'm actually not that good at it. Also, Marina said she really enjoyed that. She felt really focused. Thank you. And Cece said, I agree either way, Marina. I'm not sure what the really focusing felt awesome. Cece, what did the agree either way mean? Oh, she disappeared. There she is.
No, here I am. Sorry. That was a typo. I agree with
Oh,
her. Yeah,
okay,
it
gotcha.
felt I pulled over because just as soon as you started, I already was going. So I pulled over
Good
and
job.
yeah, I went deep and really focused. So and it felt awesome. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Right, yeah.
Christine also said she found herself going under before she knew it. So
Right, yeah.
successful.
I mean, this induction works well with analytical types, because you're not really ever telling anyone to relax or you're just sort of overwhelming them, so that then by the time you get to one thing, you're like, yeah, just one thing. Yeah, just one thing. That sounds really good.
I appreciate this one also because it doesn't rely on your ability to visualize, which is nice. And for those of you that are in Quantum Journeys Hypnosis, there is a version of this in the student resources, just so you know. It's not this exact one because everybody plays with it a little bit, but there's the plus or
Cece,
minus
love
two.
the
Yeah.
conveyor belt story. Yeah, the conveyor belt story. That my salmon factory is a true story. I did that thing where, you know, actually I was in grad school and someone told me about working in the salmon plants in Alaska. I was like supposed to like make good money. And I went there. I didn't really like make really big money or anything, but it was quite an adventure. And yeah, interesting thing. Most writers
I,
do many weird
oh,
jobs. So go ahead.
I'm sorry too. I just wanted to let you know that I was not on video, but I was listening to it. But I'm eating lunch because this is the only time I have to have my lunch. But I was very focused on the flavor, and it was awesome how it brought. I added, I'm satisfied with all of this food, how satisfying and how healthy it is to be focused on the texture, the flavor of the food. And it was very healthy food too. So it was kind of cool that I wasn't actually trying to go under, but I was very focused. I thought it was awesome. Thank you.
Great. Yeah.
What a great way to be mindful of what we're putting in our bodies too. Not just what we're putting in our minds, right, Jenny, but Janine, also what we're putting in our mouths. So I love that. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and if anyone is interested, February, I am doing this Focus February, and that's going to be, I'm going to be having 4 1-hour sessions that will include talking and tools and different hypnosis each time to
Is that
help
on
with.
your website?
There's the Eventbrite link to it. I'll just put it in the chat.
Okay. Well, here's your website again too for anybody who came in later.
Right, I haven't had it. I just put it up on Eventbrite like 2 days ago. I forgot to add it to my website, but I'll add it to my website too. There are also, like I said, I work a lot with writers. So, if you are interested in writing, I do individual hypnosis. I also teach trance writing classes. And on my website, there are free recordings to help kind of get out of your own way for writing, to get into a more open, focused flow state for writing. Many of the problems that writers get is sort of, again, it's sort of like your own mind, your self-criticism mind getting in the way of writing, and the inner critic. And so I have, recordings to help with those things. And in the February, it will be partly, it will also be kind of a community. I'm going to create a Facebook group to go with it, so people can share, how are they doing? How are you doing in your effort to put down your cell phone? How are you doing in your effort to increase your attention? And just focusing on that goal of being less distracted and noticing what you're doing is a huge help in taking back your time and attention, just taking it back. And
I was
I
really
think
surprised to hear the statistics of how often the average person checks their cell phone. Like, I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to that now. I'm sure that I'm guilty of at least that many times. Now that I live alone, my kids are grown, and it's just me and my business and my kitty cats. So the phone has almost become like its own housemate, unfortunately. So yeah, I need to do something about that. Thank you for the check-in. But also the focus mate thing. Just having like the body doubling or the accountability partner. I like that concept too.
yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, I love that. I mean, And I do that, and I do the focus, especially if it's something like that I've been procrastinating on or something that's difficult to do. And it's just sort of like, okay, you can set time on your own, but there is something different about having someone else there, even though it's like, even though it's a stranger that you don't even
Right.
know or care about.
I feel like that might make it easier in a way.
There's still
you
a
know?
human being in the world who is noticing you, who is, is accountable. It's kind of like, I mean, when I teach writing classes, most of the people take 50% of the reason that people take no writing classes is just so that they'll have a deadline, so that they'll have someone to tell them, do this by then. I mean, there's craft issues to learn too, but a large part of it is just the accountability. And so accountability is really huge for people. And so that's one of the reasons that I decided to do this Focus February project, to sort of have a group and help people. Let's get more accountable for, how we are using our attention. And as I said, I'm not, the pro superstar in the room. I'm a, I'm a learner on my own journey too, with focus and attention. It has been, when I was younger, a super hard thing for me. And now, I've gotten better, was able to, finish my book, got got better at focusing. But with technology, it's always an ongoing
Right.
path, an ongoing learning.
I know with me, like I have two modes. One is highly distractible and the other one is highly focused. And there's like no in between. So if I get highly focused on something, it could be hours or days before I resurface, unless somebody comes and grabs me. It's like, Krista, there's a life out there. And I'm like, oh yeah, right. Like when I was creating, a program or something or a course, I would just go down that rabbit hole and I would not come out for, yeah, I would remember like hours later, like, oh, I better eat something. Or I forgot to use the restroom, or like just whatever is coming up for me that I had not been paying attention to. But then there's the other side, and this is just the lovely, neuro spicy brain that I have. And I'm sure some people can probably relate to this, is where like I'm trying so hard to focus on something, maybe something even that has a deadline, and every other little distraction is pulling my attention. And I'm sure that that's gotten worse since the advent of smartphones.
Yeah.
I think it was already difficult. And then smartphones just like dug that particular neural pathway deeper and deeper every time I allowed myself to get distracted. So yeah, thank you. You've been a wealth of information. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everyone who came. If you want to get on my email list, you can sign up at jennybitner.com. And like I said, I also have these, if you are a writer and want to come to writing together, I have them from 10 to 12 Pacific time on Monday and Friday. That's a free thing I do. And
Oh, beautiful.
I also have a meetup group that is called Creative Writing Using Hypnosis and Dreams.
Ooh.
So yeah, I'll just put my
And that's meetup.org, just for the people who are not able to see the chat comments because they're watching this later. Is
Yeah.
that through Meetup? Okay.
Yeah, that's in Meetup. You can also email me if you have any questions.
What's the best way to find you? Should it be
Jenny
okay,
Bitner.
through your website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you are also on Facebook, because that's how we found each other. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. And I'll be speaking at Hypnothoughts and
Yay.
in Vegas on focus. So this is, I'm doing this lab to get even more information and to to work with people on helping them so that I can present. Thank you,
Yep.
Christine. Thank you, Cece. Great to meet you. And yeah, thank you, Krista, so much for doing this. This is
Oh,
wonderful.
absolutely. And I will see you at Hypnothoughts. We will both
Yeah.
be there this year, baby. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. It was
Thank you.
wonderful, wonderful hour. And you can catch the replay on the YouTube channel, Hypnotherapy Uncensored in YouTube. Probably won't be up until tomorrow. because I have to edit a little bit. But otherwise, we'll see you soon. Thank you so much, Jenny. You're a wealth of information and inspiration.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank
Thank you, Krista. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.